In 2024, three black SUVs rolled into a small Georgia town, the kind nobody in Hadley Springs had ever seen, the kind that cost more than most houses there. 800 people gathered in the town square. CNN cameras pointed at a wooden stage. On that stage stood a 65-year-old black woman, tears streaming, hands trembling. 20 years earlier, she'd taken in three white boys nobody wanted. Three brothers the whole town rejected. She raised them with nothing but love and prayers whispered in the dark. Then they were ripped away from her. She never saw them again. Until today. But here's what she didn't know. Those three boys had become some of the most powerful men in the Southeast. And what they did next made the entire town fall to its knees. But before we get to that moment, we need to go back, way back, to 2004, to a woman who had no idea her life was about to change forever. Hadley Springs, Georgia. Population 2,800. One gas station, one church. One grocery store that closed at 6. The kind of town where everybody knew everybody. And everybody had an opinion about everybody else. Beatrice Owens lived in a 3-bedroom house her grandmother built in 1955. Wooden floors that creaked. A wraparound porch with a rocking chair, a vegetable garden out back that she tended every morning before sunrise. She was 45 years old, never married, no children, not for lack of wanting. Beatrice had dreamed of being a mother her whole life, but after 2 miscarriages in her 30s, she stopped trying, stopped hoping, poured all that love into Sunday school kids and stray cats and tomato plants. She worked 2 jobs. Mornings at the elementary school cafeteria, weekends cleaning the county courthouse. Took home $1,280 a month. The mortgage was $620. You do the math. Her roof had been leaking since February. She had a blue tarp over the back corner of the living room, 3 buckets catching drips when it rained. Repair estimate? $3,400. Her savings? $780. She'd applied for a home repair grant through the county. Been waiting 4 months. The lady at the office kept saying she was in the queue. But Beatrice didn't complain. That wasn't her way. Every Sunday, she sat in the 3rd pew at Greater Hope Baptist Church. Pastor Raymond Coleman knew her by heart. Knew she'd bring potato salad to every potluck. Knew she'd volunteer first and leave last. He watched her with the children after service. The way she knelt down to their level, the way she really listened when they spoke. Pastor Coleman noticed something the rest of the town didn't see. Beatrice Owens had a gift for broken things. Her neighbor Denise Harper came by most Tuesdays. They'd sit on the porch with sweet tea while Denise's kids played in the yard. "Bea, have you ever thought about leaving this place?" Denise asked one afternoon. "Your cousin in Atlanta has room." Beatrice smiled, tired but warm. "And who's gonna water Grandma's tomatoes? Who's gonna make sure Pastor Coleman doesn't put too much sugar in the lemonade?" She laughed, but Denise saw it, the loneliness sitting behind Beatrice's eyes, like a permanent guest who never left. Every night, Beatrice prayed the same prayer, had been praying it for 15 years. "Lord, if I'm meant to be a mother, send me someone to love. If I'm not, help me make peace with this empty house." She'd made peace with it, mostly. Above her fireplace hung a small wooden plaque, hand-carved by her grandmother decades ago, the edges worn smooth from years of dusting. It read, "A house becomes a home when it holds someone else's pain." Beatrice had read those words 10,000 times. She was about to understand what they really meant. Now here's the thing about Hadley Springs. It wasn't openly hostile, no burning crosses, no shouted slurs, but there was a texture to the silence. When Beatrice walked into the grocery store, conversations paused. Just a beat, then continued. When she applied to be a substitute teacher, she had 30 college credits, just 15 short of a degree. The school board thanked her for her interest. They never called back. She told herself it didn't bother her. told herself she was content with the cafeteria, content with the mop and the courthouse floors. But some nights, lying in that too-quiet house, she wondered, what would it feel like to be chosen for something? To be someone's first pick instead of their last resort? She didn't know it yet, but she was about to find out. That Tuesday night, the phone rang. It was Carolyn Mitchell, social worker from the county office. Beatrice knew her from high school, back when she was Carolyn Baker. "B." Carolyn's voice was strained. "I know this is last minute. I know it's a lot to ask." Beatrice sat up straighter. "But I've got 3 boys. Brothers. And nobody will take them. I mean, nobody!" Beatrice's heart started beating faster. "They've been through 4 foster homes in 18 months, Carolyn continued. "The last family, there was an incident." "What kind of incident?" A long pause. "The kind that makes people stop asking questions and start closing doors." Beatrice looked at her grandmother's plaque on the mantel. "A house becomes a home when it holds someone else's pain." "Carolyn," she said slowly, "tell me about these boys." And what Carolyn told her next would change everything. But what Carolyn didn't say, what she couldn't say, was why these 3 boys seemed to be erased from every record that mattered. Why no relatives came forward. Why a family with their last name had been mentioned in the Atlanta papers years ago, connected to money, serious money. Carolyn didn't know that part. Neither did Beatrice. But they were both about to find out. Beatrice gripped the phone cord tighter. "3 boys?" she repeated. "All brothers?" "Yes," Carolyn's voice cracked. "James is 14, Daniel is 11, and Thomas is 8. Why won't anyone take them?" Carolyn hesitated. The silence stretched too long. "There's history, B, with the family. Things I can't get into. But I promise you, these boys aren't dangerous. They're just damaged." Damaged. The word hung in the air. "The youngest one," Carolyn continued. "Thomas. He hasn't spoken in 6 weeks. Not one word. The middle one, Daniel, has been suspended 3 times for fighting, always protecting his brothers. And James..." She paused. "James is 14 years old, B. But he talks like he doesn't expect to see 18. Beatrice closed her eyes. "What happened to their parents?" "Car accident. 8 months ago. Both gone instantly." "And no family came forward?" Another pause, longer this time. There might be family, somewhere, but they haven't claimed the boys. And honestly, at this point, the state has stopped looking." Beatrice's jaw tightened. 3 children. Orphaned. Abandoned. Bounced through 4 homes in 18 months. And now the system was ready to split them up. "If I can't find placement by Friday," Carolyn said, "they're separating them. 3 different group homes, 3 different counties." Beatrice's heart clenched. "They've already lost everything," Carolyn whispered. "Their parents, their home, each other is all they have left." Beatrice looked around her small house, the leaking roof, the buckets, the empty bedrooms she'd stopped going into years ago. She thought about her $780 in savings. She thought about the tarp flapping in the wind. Then she thought about an 8-year-old boy who'd stopped speaking, who'd looked at the world and decided it wasn't worth talking to anymore. "Carolyn." "Yes?" "Bring them here." Friday came gray and cold. October wind scattered leaves across Beatrice's porch as the county van pulled up. Not a sedan. A van. Because they needed room for 3 boys and everything they owned. Everything they owned fit in 3 garbage bags. Carolyn walked them up the path. The oldest boy came first. James. 14 years old, but carrying himself like a grown man. jaw set, hands clenched into fists, eyes scanning for threats. He'd been the parent for 4 years now, since he was 10, since their real parents started falling apart. Behind him walked Daniel, 11, wiry and tense. His left eye had a fading yellow bruise. His gaze swept the property like he was calculating escape routes, and hiding behind both of them was Thomas, 8 years old, small for his age, clutching a battered leather notebook against his chest like a shield. Beatrice noticed his shoes first, holes in both toes. Then she noticed the notebook, old leather, worn edges, gold initials embossed on the corner, almost invisible now. H.W. She didn't think anything of it then. She should have. Beatrice did something none of the other foster parents had done. She stepped off the porch, walked down to meet them, and knelt right there on the pathway, eye level with Thomas. "I'm Miss B," she said softly. "This is my house, and as long as you're here, it's your house too." James stared at her. He'd heard this speech before. Every foster home said the same things. "I've got 3 rules," Beatrice continued. "We eat together. We don't lie to each other. And nobody in this house goes to bed without knowing they're loved." Daniel snorted. "That's 4 rules." Beatrice didn't miss a beat. "The 4th one's not a rule, it's a promise." Something flickered in James's eyes, just for a moment. Across the street, Edna Cartwright watched from her window. 70 years old, president of the garden club, lips pressed into a thin line. 3 houses down, Sheriff Earl Dawson slowed his patrol car, made a mental note of the scene. Didn't stop. Beatrice felt the eyes on her. She'd felt them her whole life, but today, for the first time, she didn't care. She reached out and took Thomas's hand, gently, carefully, like holding something precious. "Come on inside," she said. "I made dinner." That first night they sat around her kitchen table, baked chicken, rice, green beans from the garden. James and Daniel ate like they were afraid the food would disappear, shoveling it in, eyes darting. Thomas pushed his food around the plate, didn't eat, didn't speak. "Thomas, honey," Beatrice's voice was gentle. "You don't have to talk, but you do have to eat, even just a little." He looked up at her. First time he'd made eye contact with an adult in weeks. Slowly he picked up his fork, took one bite. Beatrice's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them away before anyone could see. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that someone very powerful was already looking for these boys. And when he found them, everything would fall apart. The first 6 months were the hardest. James tested Beatrice constantly, came home late without explanation, talked back, slammed doors, waited for her to give up like everyone else. She didn't. One Tuesday night, he stumbled in at 11, found Beatrice sitting on the porch, plate of food in her lap, still warm. "I don't know where you were," she said calmly. "You're going to tell me eventually. That's one of our rules." James braced himself for the lecture. "But right now, you're going to eat, because that's one of my promises." He stared at her, confused. No yelling, no threats. Just a plate of chicken and a woman who refused to quit. He sat down. He ate. The next Tuesday, he was home by 9. Daniel was different. His pain came out through his fists. 3 calls from the principal in 2 months. Fighting in the hallway. Fighting at recess. Fighting anyone who looked at his brothers wrong. Beatrice showed up every time. Sat in those meetings. Held his hand under the table where no one could see. "Mrs. Owens," the principal said sternly, "this behavior is unacceptable." "It's Miss," Beatrice corrected. "And I agree, but I'm curious. Has anyone asked this boy why he's fighting? Or do y'all just skip to the punishment?" The principal had no answer. That weekend, Beatrice drove Daniel to the community center, signed him up for the youth boxing program. "You want to throw punches?" she told him. "Fine, but you're going to do it the right way, with gloves, with rules, with respect." Daniel found something in that ring. Control, discipline, a way to channel the rage that had been eating him alive. He came home tired instead of angry. And Thomas? Thomas didn't speak. Not for 8 weeks. Beatrice didn't push. Every night she sat beside his bed and read to him Charlotte's Web, The Chronicles of Narnia, Where the Red Fern Grows. He listened. His eyes followed every word. Week 9. She was tucking him in. "Miss B?" Her heart stopped. His voice was barely a whisper, rusty from disuse. "Yes, baby? Will you still be here in the morning?" Beatrice's eyes burned. She blinked hard. "I'll be here in the morning, and the morning after that, and every morning you need me." That night, Thomas slept through without nightmares. First time since his parents died. Then January came, and everything nearly fell apart. A freak ice storm hit Georgia. Worst in 20 years. Power lines down across the county. The temperature dropped to 18 degrees. Beatrice's house lost electricity at 2 a.m. She bundled the boys in every blanket she owned, gathered them in the living room, but the temperature kept dropping. That leaking roof? The tarp had frozen solid. Ice was forming on the inside of the windows. Then Thomas started coughing. At first, just a little, then more. Then he was shivering violently, his lips turning blue. Beatrice checked his forehead, burning hot and freezing cold at the same time. No car. Her old sedan had died 2 months ago. No phone, lines were down. The nearest neighbor was a quarter-mile away, through ice. She looked at Thomas. His breathing was getting shallow. She made a decision. "James, Daniel, stay here. Keep your brother warm. Pile on top of him if you have to." "Where are you going?" James's voice cracked. "To get help." Beatrice put on her grandmother's old coat, wrapped a scarf around her face, and walked out into the storm. The world outside was pure white chaos. Ice on every surface, trees bending under the weight. The wind was screaming so loud she could barely hear herself think. She walked, 1 step at a time. Quarter-mile to Denise Harper's house. Fell twice. Got back up. Her hands went numb first, then her feet, then her face. But she kept walking. When she reached Denise's door, she pounded with both fists. Didn't stop until her gloves were bloody. The door opened. "B?" Denise's eyes went wide. "What in God's name—" "Thomas." Beatrice could barely speak. "Can't breathe. Need your truck. Now." They made it to the hospital. Barely. The ER doctor said Thomas had early-stage hypothermia and a respiratory infection. Another hour in that cold, and it could have been pneumonia. Could have been worse. Beatrice sat in that waiting room until sunrise. James and Daniel pressed against her sides. All 3 of them were exhausted. All 3 of them were terrified, but alive. Around 4 a.m., James spoke. "Why are you doing this?" Beatrice looked at him. "Doing what, baby?" "This. All of this." His voice broke. "We're not even yours." Beatrice was quiet for a long moment. Then she put her arm around him. "Let me tell you something my grandmother told me," she said. She said, "Family isn't about blood. Family is about who shows up when the ice comes." She pulled him closer. "I'm showing up. That's all I know how to do." James didn't pull away. For the first time since his parents died, he let himself lean on someone. After that night, something shifted. James started calling her Mama B instead of Miss B. Daniel stopped looking for escape routes. Thomas drew her a picture. A house with a yellow roof. 4 stick figures holding hands. He wrote, "My family," at the top. Spelled wrong. Perfect, anyway. She hung it on the refrigerator. But not everyone in town saw it the way the boys did. Mrs. Edna Cartwright stopped Beatrice outside the grocery store one afternoon. "Beatrice, I've known you since you were a girl." Her voice was ice. "And I have to say, people are talking. 3 white boys in your house? It doesn't look right." Beatrice met her gaze. Calm, but steel underneath. "Mrs. Cartwright, I appreciate your concern. But those boys needed a home, and I had one. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got dinner to make." She walked away, didn't look back. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't let anyone see. Word spread about the hospital run. Most people admired it. Some didn't. Whispers followed Beatrice through town, at the grocery store, at church, even at the courthouse where she mopped floors. She heard them all, but she kept her head high, kept showing up for those boys, kept being their mother in every way that mattered, because that's who Beatrice Owens was. And nothing, not gossip, not judgment, not even an ice storm, was going to change that. What she didn't know was that someone else had been watching too. Someone far away. Someone powerful. Someone who had been looking for these boys for a very long time. And he was about to show up at her door. 18 months passed. 18 months of homework at the kitchen table. Of Sunday dinners with too much laughter and not enough chairs. Of bedtime stories and boxing practice and tomatoes ripening in the garden. The boys grew. Not just taller, stronger, whole. James smiled now. Real smiles. The kind that reached his eyes. He'd started talking about college, about maybe becoming a social worker someday, helping kids like him. Daniel won the county youth boxing championship, brought home a gold medal and hung it on the refrigerator next to Thomas's drawing. Thomas was reading 2 grades above his level, still quiet. But the good kind of quiet now. The kind that meant he was thinking, not hiding. Beatrice filed the paperwork for official adoption. Carolyn helped her through every step. The process was slow. Mountains of forms, background checks, home inspections. But it was happening. One Sunday evening, all 4 of them sat on the porch after dinner. The sun was setting gold and pink over the garden. Thomas was reading aloud from his leather notebook. He'd started writing his own stories in it now. Adventures about brave knights and magic kingdoms. Beatrice listened to every word. Daniel tossed a tennis ball in the air, catching it, tossing it again, relaxed. James was helping Beatrice shell peas. His hands moved automatically, like he'd done it 100 times, because he had. "Mama B?" Beatrice's heart still skipped when he called her that. "Yes, baby?" "I just wanted to say..." He paused, looked down at the peas. "Thank you for not giving up on us." Beatrice set down the bowl, took his hand. "Baby, I could never give up on you. Not ever." The moment hung there. Perfect. Complete. None of them noticed the black car at the end of the road, but it had been there for 3 days now, watching. The next afternoon, Beatrice saw it again. Parked just past the old oak tree, engine off. Windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. Not a car from Hadley Springs. Too new, too expensive, too out of place. She mentioned it to Sheriff Dawson after church. "Probably just lost," he said. "City folks with their GPS taking wrong turns." But the car came back. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Always the same spot. Always watching. Then Friday came. Beatrice was hanging laundry in the backyard when she heard an engine. Different this time. Deeper. She walked around to the front of the house. A black limousine sat in her driveway. The kind of car she'd only seen in movies. Long and sleek and completely wrong for this dusty road. The back door opened. A man stepped out, 70 years old, maybe older. Silver hair, expensive suit, the kind that cost more than her mortgage. His face was hard, cold, like someone who'd spent a lifetime giving orders and never hearing no. Behind him came a younger man, slick, carrying a leather briefcase. The older man looked at the house, at the peeling paint, at the tarp still covering part of the roof. His lip curled, just slightly. Then his eyes found Beatrice. "Miss Owens?" "That's me. My name is Harold Whitfield." He didn't offer his hand. "And I'm here for my grandchildren." Beatrice felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "You're... what?" "James, Daniel, Thomas." He said the names like he was reading a list. "They're my daughter's children, my blood, and I've come to take them home." The screen door creaked behind Beatrice. She turned. James stood there, face pale, eyes locked on the old man. "You," James whispered. The word came out broken, jagged. "You're the one she wrote letters to. You're the one who never answered." Harold's expression didn't change. "That's a conversation for later. Right now, we need to discuss the legalities." He nodded to the man with the briefcase. "My lawyers will explain." But Beatrice didn't hear the lawyers. She was watching James, watching his hands ball into fists, watching 18 months of healing crack apart in an instant. And she knew. Everything was about to change. The next 3 weeks were a nightmare. Harold Whitfield wasn't just rich. He was powerful. The kind of powerful that bent laws and broke people without breaking a sweat. His lawyers came with documents, stacks of them. Birth certificates, blood tests, custody petitions. They came with a simple message. Harold Whitfield was the boy's only living blood relative. He had legal rights. Beatrice had none. She was just a foster mother. Temporary. Disposable. Beatrice hired a lawyer anyway. The only one she could afford. $80 an hour. Fresh out of law school. Up against a team from Atlanta that charged more per minute than she made in a day. She brought witnesses. Pastor Coleman, Denise Harper, the ER doctor from the ice storm night, teachers who'd watched the boys transform. None of it mattered. Harold's lawyers had one argument: blood. And in Georgia, blood still meant everything. The judge ruled in Harold's favor. Custody transferred immediately. The morning they left, Beatrice stood on the porch. The same porch where she'd knelt 18 months ago and promised 3 broken boys that they were home. Now she watched that home being ripped away. James came to her first. 16 years old now, tall, strong, but his eyes were 10 years old again. Lost. "Mama B," his voice cracked. "We don't want to go. Please, tell them." "I know, baby." Tears streamed down her face. "I know, but I did everything I could. The law doesn't see what we are." Daniel hugged her so hard she couldn't breathe. His shoulders shook. The boy who never cried was sobbing into her shoulder. "Don't let the anger win," she whispered. "Remember what I taught you. Control it. Don't let it control you." Then Thomas. He stood in front of her, small, silent, holding his leather notebook. Slowly, he held it out to her. "Keep it for me, Mama B." His voice was steady, stronger than it should have been. "I'll come back for it." Beatrice took the notebook, pressed it against her heart. "I'll keep it safe, baby, I promise." James turned back one last time, his eyes locked on hers. "We'll come back, Mama B. I swear, no matter how long it takes." Then Harold's driver opened the limousine door. One by one, the boys climbed inside. The door closed. The engine started. The black car rolled down the dirt road, turned at the corner, disappeared. Beatrice stood on that porch until the sun went down, alone, holding a leather notebook with the initials HW. She didn't know it then, but she wouldn't see those boys again for 20 years. 20 years is a long time. Long enough for a town to forget. Long enough for hope to fade. Long enough for a woman to wonder if she dreamed at all. But Beatrice never forgot, and she never stopped trying. The first year, she wrote letters. One every week, sent them to Harold's address in Atlanta, the one his lawyers had listed on the court documents. Every single letter came back, returned to sender. She tried calling. The number was disconnected. When she found a new one, it was disconnected too. She hired a private investigator, $200 she didn't have. He found out the boys had been sent to a boarding school in New England. Expensive, elite, no visitors without permission. She drove 8 hours to that school, stood outside the iron gates, begged to see them. The security guard was polite but firm. "Ma'am, Mr. Whitfield has made his instructions clear. You're on the restricted list. I'm sorry." She drove 8 hours home, alone. After that, the trail went cold. No forwarding address, no phone numbers, no way in. Harold Whitfield had erased her from his grandchildren's lives as thoroughly as if she'd never existed. Meanwhile, the town turned on her. Rumors spread like wildfire, the kind that sound almost reasonable if you don't know the truth. Heard the grandfather found out she was mistreating them. Why else would a rich man come all that way? She probably just wanted the foster checks anyway. Nobody said it to her face, but she heard the whispers, saw the sideways glances, felt the silence when she walked into the room. In 2010, the school board let her go from the cafeteria. Budget cuts, they said. But Beatrice knew better. Edna Cartwright sat on that board. She found work cleaning houses, then offices, then whatever she could get. Then 2015 hit. Beatrice found a lump in her breast, tried to ignore it. Couldn't. The diagnosis: breast cancer. Early stage. Treatable. But treatment cost money. She had no insurance, no savings, nothing left. She sold her car, the only one she had. $3,200. She took out a second mortgage on the house, her grandmother's house. She sold the jewelry her grandmother left her, the last pieces of her inheritance. 6 months of chemotherapy. Alone. Denise Harper drove her to every appointment, held her hand while she vomited, brought her soup when she couldn't eat. Beatrice survived. The cancer didn't, but the debt remained. $28,000 added to her mortgage. Then came 2020. The pandemic shut everything down. The courthouse closed. Her cleaning jobs vanished. 61 years old. No income. No savings. A mortgage she couldn't pay. She started doing whatever she could. Babysitting for $5 an hour. Selling cornbread for $3 each. Pulling weeds for neighbors who used to gossip about her. And every night she prayed. Not for herself. For them. Lord, keep my boys safe. Keep them healthy. Keep them happy. And if it's your will, let them know I never stopped loving them. In 2020, Harold Whitfield died. Beatrice read about it in the newspaper. A small obituary in the Atlanta Journal. Billionaire philanthropist. Founder of Whitfield Capital Partners. Survived by 3 grandchildren. 3 grandchildren, her boys. She tried to find them again. Searched online at the library. Asked Carolyn Mitchell to check old records. Nothing. They'd disappeared into Harold's world completely. She didn't know that across the country, 3 young men were searching for her too. After Harold died, everything changed. The will was read. James, Daniel, and Thomas inherited everything. $600 million each. The first thing James did was hire an investigator. The best money could buy. Find Beatrice Owens, whatever it takes. But Beatrice had no digital footprint, no social media, no cell phone, no email. She still lived in the same house, still had the same landline number. But the investigator's letters got lost in the mail, or thrown away with the junk, or returned because the address format was wrong. It took 4 years. 4 years of dead ends, false leads, near misses, until finally, in early 2024, the investigator confirmed it. Beatrice Owens was alive, still in Hadley Springs, still in her grandmother's house, but barely, because in 2023, the bank sent a notice, 3 months behind on mortgage payments, total owed $2,400, 30 days to pay, or the house would be seized. Beatrice sat in her kitchen that night, the same kitchen where she'd fed 3 hungry boys 20 years ago. She held Thomas's leather notebook, still unopened, still waiting for him. Outside, the roof still leaked. The buckets still caught the drips. She had $147 in her account. "Lord," she whispered, "I don't know what to do anymore. I've got nothing left." She looked at the notebook, traced the gold initials with her finger. H. But if I can't see them again, at least let them know. Let them know I kept my promise. I kept it safe. I kept loving them. Every single day. She didn't know that 3 men were already on their way, driving through the night, 600 miles, racing against time. They'd found her, and they weren't going to lose her again. What happened next would change everything. Not just for Beatrice, but for the entire town that had turned its back on her. Saturday morning, spring 2024. Beatrice sat on the porch like she did every day, holding Thomas's notebook, watching the empty road. 7 days until the bank took her house. She'd made peace with it, mostly. The house was just walls and wood. What mattered was what happened inside, the memories, the love. Those couldn't be foreclosed. But still, it hurt. She decided to work in the garden, one last time. If she had to leave, she wanted her grandmother's tomatoes to look their best. She was watering the plants when she heard it. Engines. Not the usual rumble of pickup trucks. Something deeper, smoother. She looked up. 3 black SUVs rolled down the dirt road, moving slow, like a procession. The kind of vehicles that didn't belong in Hadley Springs. The kind that cost more than houses here. Neighbors came out on their porches. Edna Cartwright pressed her face to her window. The SUVs stopped in front of Beatrice's house. Doors opened. The first man stepped out. Tall, broad shoulders, gray suit, confident stance. But something about his eyes. Beatrice's hand went to her chest. No, it couldn't be. The second man followed. Muscular, military bearing. A scar on his forearm. Then the third, slender, glasses, kind face. And those eyes, blue-green, the same eyes she remembered from a terrified 8-year-old who wouldn't speak. The watering slipped from her fingers. "Thomas?" The man with glasses smiled. That same shy smile from 20 years ago. "Hey, Mama B." His voice cracked. "I came back for my notebook." Beatrice couldn't move, couldn't breathe. James stepped forward, the boy who'd tested her every day, who'd come home late and eaten her food in silence, who'd learned to call her Mama. "We promised we'd come back," he said. "We keep our promises." Daniel was already crying, the fighter, the angry one, tears streaming down his face without shame. "Mama B!" That was all it took. Beatrice ran, 65 years old. Bad knees, hadn't run in years. She ran. James caught her first, wrapped his arms around her and held on like he'd never let go. Daniel joined, then Thomas. 4 people standing in a vegetable garden, holding each other, crying. 20 years of separation. 20 years of searching. 20 years of prayers whispered in the dark. Over. Finally, over. They went inside. The boys, men now, looked around, taking it all in. The creaky floors, the old furniture, the same rocking chair, the same wooden plaque above the fireplace. And on the refrigerator, faded and yellowed but still there, Thomas's drawing, the house with the yellow roof, 4 stick figures. My family. You kept it, Daniel whispered. I kept everything, Beatrice said. She reached up to the mantel, took down the leather notebook, held it out to Thomas. I never opened it. Not once. It's yours. Thomas took it with trembling hands, opened it for the first time in 20 years. Inside were his childhood stories, knights and dragons, magic kingdoms. But on the last page, something new. A letter, in his mother's handwriting, written before she died. He'd never known it was there. She put it there for you, Beatrice said softly. I figured you'd find it when you were ready. Thomas broke down completely. James took Beatrice's hands, looked into her eyes. Mama B, we know about the bank. We know about the foreclosure. Her face tightened. How? We've been looking for you for 4 years. When we finally found you, we found everything. Daniel stepped forward. We paid off the mortgage, the whole thing. This house is yours now, free and clear, forever. Beatrice's legs went weak. James caught her, guided her to the rocking chair. That's not all, Thomas said. He'd composed himself now. Lawyer mode. We're establishing the Beatrice Owens Foundation, $50 million to help foster families across Georgia. Emergency housing, legal aid, scholarships. Beatrice stared at him. 50 million? And we want you to run it, James added. If you're willing. She couldn't process it. The numbers were too big, too impossible. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would you... How did you... Daniel knelt beside her chair, took her weathered hand in his. Mama B, you walked through an ice storm for us. You fought a billionaire in court for us. You waited 20 years for us. His voice broke. There's nothing we could ever do that would be enough. But we're going to spend the rest of our lives trying. Beatrice looked at them. Her boys, men now, successful, powerful, but still hers. She started laughing, then crying, then both at once. I prayed for this, she said. Every night, every single night. I asked the Lord to keep you safe, to let you know I still loved you. She touched each of their faces. James, Daniel, Thomas. And here you are. James smiled, that real smile she remembered. Here we are, Mama, and we're not going anywhere. But the reunion wasn't over, because the boys hadn't just come to find their mother. They'd come to face the town that had abandoned her, and they had something to say. By afternoon, word had spread across Hadley Springs. 3 rich men at Beatrice Owens's house. Fancy cars. CNN cameras. Something big was happening. People gathered in the town square. First a few dozen, then 100, then hundreds more. By 3 o'clock, nearly 800 people stood waiting. Almost the entire town. A small stage had been set up. Microphones, speakers, camera crews from Atlanta stations. Nobody knew what was coming. James walked to the microphone first. The crowd fell silent. "Thank you all for coming." His voice was steady, commanding. "I know you're wondering who we are." He paused. Let the silence build. 20 years ago, we stood on this same street. 3 boys. Our parents just died. No family, nowhere to go. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. We were rejected by 4 foster families, labeled as troubled, labeled as broken. And when the social worker asked this town, if anyone would take 3 orphaned brothers, he looked out at the faces. Some are confused, some are uncomfortable. Silence. Not one person. The murmurs stopped. The crowd shifted. Except one. James pointed toward the side of the stage. Beatrice stood there, supported by Daniel and Thomas. A black woman, living alone, working 2 jobs, roof leaking, barely enough money to feed herself. His voice grew stronger. She didn't have much, but she had a home, and she opened it to us. Daniel helped Beatrice up the stairs. The crowd watched in stunned silence. This woman walked through an ice storm to save my brother's life. She fought a billionaire in court to keep us together. She never stopped loving us. Not for one single day. James's voice cracked. Her name is Beatrice Owens, and she's our mother. The crowd erupted. Applause, gasps, some people crying. But James wasn't finished. Now let me tell you what happened after we were taken away. The applause died. This town turned on her. Rumors, whispers, lies. People said she mistreated us. People said she only wanted foster money. He stared into the crowd, searching for specific faces. She lost her job. She got cancer and fought it alone. She nearly lost her home. His jaw tightened. And where was this town? Where were all of you? Nobody answered. Daniel stepped to the microphone next. We came back to make things right. Not just for Mama B, for this whole community. He let that sink in. We've paid off her mortgage. Her house is hers forever. Applause started. Daniel held up his hand. But that's not all. We're establishing the Beatrice Owens Foundation, $50 million. The crowd went completely silent. This foundation will build a family resource center right here in Hadley Springs. It will provide scholarships for every foster child in this county who wants to go to college. It will repair and rebuild 50 homes for families in need. He paused, including the families who said terrible things about our mother. Gasps, whispers, people looking at each other. Thomas stepped forward last. The quiet one. The one who'd stopped speaking all those years ago. Mama B taught us something, he said softly. She taught us that kindness doesn't keep score. It doesn't hold grudges. It just keeps giving. He looked at Beatrice. She was crying openly now. So that's what we're doing. Giving to everyone, even those who don't deserve it. From the crowd, a figure pushed forward. Edna Cartwright, 88 years old now, frail, shaking. She climbed the stage steps slowly, walked to Beatrice, and fell to her knees. Beatrice. Her voice trembled. I was wrong. Everything I said, everything I did. I was wrong. Tears streamed down her wrinkled face. Can you ever forgive me? Beatrice looked down at the woman who'd made her life miserable for 20 years. The woman who'd spread rumors, who'd gotten her fired, who'd turned neighbors into enemies. Beatrice reached down, took Edna's hands, lifted her up. I forgave you a long time ago, Edna. Her voice was gentle. Holding on to anger only hurts the one holding it. She pulled Edna into a hug. The crowd lost it. Applause, cheering, people crying openly, strangers embracing. Something broke open in Hadley Springs that day. 20 years of whispers and judgment and silence. washed away by one woman's grace, and 3 boys who never forgot where they came from. 1 year later, Hadley Springs was unrecognizable. The Owens Family Resource Center stood in the heart of town, 3 stories tall, modern, and bright. The nicest building for 50 miles. Outside, a bronze statue caught the morning light. A woman kneeling down, holding a child's hand. Beneath it, words carved in stone. A house becomes a home when it holds someone else's pain. The results spoke for themselves. 28 families had registered to become foster parents. Before the foundation, 0. 45 students received full college scholarships. Kids who'd aged out of the system. Kids who'd been told they'd never amount to anything. 32 homes had been repaired or rebuilt. New roofs, working plumbing, fresh paint on walls that hadn't seen care in decades. National newspapers called Hadley Springs the town of second chances. The boys stayed close. James moved into the house next door to Beatrice. "So Mama never has to be alone again," he said. He ran the foundation full-time, oversaw every grant, reviewed every application, made sure no child slipped through the cracks. Daniel built the Owens Athletic Center on the site of the old community center. Free boxing lessons, basketball courts, after-school programs, a safe place for kids with too much anger and nowhere to put it. Thomas opened a legal clinic inside the resource center. Free advice for foster families. Free representation for parents fighting to keep their children. He was pushing a new bill through the state legislature, the Owens Family Preservation Act, designed to keep siblings together in the foster system. Every Sunday, they gathered at Beatrice's house. James and his wife, Daniel and his girlfriend, Thomas and his 2-year-old daughter. Her name was Bee, named after her grandmother in every way that mattered. The dinner table was crowded now, loud, full of laughter and arguments and spilled juice. Beatrice sat at the head, watching her family, her real family, the family she'd prayed for all those years ago. One Tuesday afternoon, the phone rang. Carolyn Mitchell, retired now, but still making calls. "Bee, I know you're busy these days, but there's a little girl, 7 years old. Nobody will take her." Beatrice looked out the window. James was pushing baby Bee on the porch swing. Daniel was firing up the grill. Thomas was reading on the steps. Her house was full. Her heart was fuller. "Bring her over, Carolyn." An hour later, a car pulled up. A little girl stepped out, scared eyes, clutching a torn backpack. Beatrice walked down the porch steps, knelt in the grass, eye level. "Hey, sweetheart. I'm Miss B. This is your home now." The little girl took her hand. Some things never change. Some things shouldn't. So that's the story of Beatrice Owens. A woman who said yes when everyone else said no. A woman who walked through ice storms and fought billionaires and waited 20 years. A woman who proved that one act of kindness can change everything. If this story touched you, if you needed to remember that quiet goodness still exists in this world, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who's struggling. Someone who's given up hope. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that bell. Because we've got more stories coming. Stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced kindness from a stranger that changed your life? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks for caring. I'll see you in the next one.
20 years, that's how long Beatrice waited. She lost her job, beat cancer alone, almost lost her home, never once stopped praying for those boys. Then 3 black SUVs rolled into Hadley Springs and the whole town went quiet. Everybody in that town had a reason not to help. Too risky, too complicated, not my problem. but Beatrice making 1,200 a month with buckets catching rain on her floor. She said, "Bring them here, no conditions, no hesitation," and the world punished her for it. The court took her boys. The town called her names. Cancer nearly took her body, but it couldn't touch what she'd planted in those kids. Because 20 years later, three men worth 600 million each didn't build a mansion or buy a yacht. They built a foundation in her name. That's not money talking, that's love coming home. And that's the thing, kindness doesn't always pay off on your timeline. Sometimes it takes 20 years, but it always comes back. Has someone ever showed up for you when nobody else would? Tell me about them in the comments. They deserve to be named. If this hit you, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell. We tell this story every week. Love doesn't need a bloodline, it just needs someone who stays. Remember that.